Greetings, this is Dr. Amona Anderson. I am your professor, and I wanted to pop in again. We are more than halfway through the course. Let me make sure that I am speaking loud enough. Hopefully, you can hear me. Hold on. Let me turn down this. Oh, excuse me. Okay, that was making some noise. So first of all, let me apologize, but I have been very sick. Actually, I was even in the hospital for a couple of days. I had a terrible stomach bug that must have flew in from overseas and decided it wanted to hang out with me for a few days. And so I am behind on my grading. Please bear with me. I promise I will catch up within the next few days for your midterm grades. I have read them. Very impressed. You guys did a great job. So no worries. Want to talk to you about a few things. We're past the midterm. This is the time that we kind of get like, oh, we're almost there. So I want to talk to you about you're in a good place, but don't get weary in well-doing. And remember, I think I may have said this before, you are a graduate student. And so the expectations for you is higher. And I wish that there was a course perhaps that was a link between your undergrad and your grad, because whether you started right after your undergrad or you took some time off, it doesn't matter, but there is a gap. And I think that I would like to create a course for adults to help build that gap where the expectations lie, because there are some things that you are expected to know as a graduate student, but you may not. Maybe you didn't get that experience, or a lot of us have had younger children living in the home, and so we didn't have to really do stuff. You can tell your son or your daughter, hey, I need to make a PowerPoint, or I need to make a physio or something. And so you have your younger kids helping you, and so you kind of like, But there is an expectation. There's an expectation as a graduate student that you know how to create an Excel spreadsheet with the formulas. There's an expectation that you know how to do a PowerPoint. Not so much Excel, but those two. That as a graduate student, you know how to conduct scholarly research, not Google. You may use Google Scholar, but it's amazing how many students think that Google, if it's on Google, it must be true. And I'm not saying that it is or it isn't, but for academic research, Google is not appropriate. You need to use ProQuest and EBSCO. You need to research scholarly sources. And that's what the library is for. And many of you, if you're not near our campus, you can call and get with the virtual librarian to help you. So please do that. And then the other thing is, don't say I said it, but YouTube. YouTube is our friend, right? Like YouTube is our friend to learn things. So go on YouTube if you don't know how to do PowerPoint or you need some extra tips. If you don't know, if you're not as familiar with Excel spreadsheets and those things, or even APA. APA formatting, I have included one on Blackboard, but YouTube for APA, there are all types of resources to help you write better. So please use those resources. The final project. The final project is a PowerPoint project, and I want you to write about an organization that has restructured successfully. Or maybe not. Maybe they restructured not so successfully. Or a company that has downsized. And why? Like why? Because that's what we're studying. Organizational development, how organizations change and these things. And to restructure oftentimes is because there is something that they are missing or that they want to incorporate. And there are a lot of companies that have restructured that we don't even think about. I want you to think about companies that started and were not as successful, but built over the years, not so much built, but restructured over the years and are now very successful. So I looked up some and think about it, Apple. If you remember when apples first came out, like nobody was fooling with apples. They were these big, clunky machines, and the Mac was just terrible. Nobody really wanted to use them, but they restructured FedEx, Evernote. Now, Evernote, I don't know how long it's been, but I know that now it's an organizational app, how to take notes and organize, and a lot of high-powered executives are using Evernote. But when they first came out, they were not doing so well. General Motors. And listen, this is something. Marvel. This whole Marvel comic thing has me just baffled, because I remember comic books as a kid, and now they're graphic novels and they're very expensive. Just $20 for a comic book. But anyway, I digress. The whole Marvel thing, in terms of Marvel has the characters and they're following a whole line, and it's a big thing. Like even with the Black Panthers and the thing escaping me, oh my gosh, the guy with the nails that comes out of his fingers, and Storm, you know what I'm talking about. But Marvel restructured and has come back in full force. Netflix, Airbnb. Airbnb is now just not even in the United States, it's overseas. Facebook, Tesla, Hulu. When Hulu first came out, didn't get a lot. It wasn't working as well. And they restructured. And now Hulu is I would say a contender with Netflix and the live streaming. Disney, Google, these are all companies. Starbucks. If you do some research on how Starbucks started and what they were doing, it wasn't the hot coffee, and they weren't very successful, and how the person bought them out and changed the model and changed the name, and now Starbucks is everywhere and people are so addicted. So those are some companies: Apple, FedEx, Reddit, Evernote, General Motors, Marvel, Starbucks, Netflix, Airbnb, Facebook. Tesla's going through a big restructuring, so that would be something interesting to look at. Hulu, Disney, and Google. So then I want to talk about downsizing, and there's some stores that have downsized recently, have closed due to bankruptcy. That's something else to research on, like what happened. Gymboree, one of my stores, Payless. Like, I don't know what happened to Payless, but they closed a bunch of stores and downsized, and they might have gone bankrupt. I know they are not here in San Antonio. They closed all their stores. So I do know they have downsized. Mattel, the gaming people. And probably we can think one of the reasons they have downsized is because of the online gaming. Our children are playing a lot of online game, but when we grew up, we played board games. So Mattel has to change. So maybe Mattel is restructuring or they're downsizing. I know Mattel has to do something to stay relevant. Barbies are going to always be relevant, and I know that they're giving Barbie a new look. So that might be something. Toshiba, American Airlines, Ashley Stewart, and Ashley Stewart is a retail store for full-figured women, and they went bankrupt but came back and seem to be working. They downsized. Kodak, that's funny. I remember Kodak, like the cameras, and think about it now. Like, many people don't even buy cameras anymore. People use their phone. So what is going on with Kodak? They have had to downsize over some years. And what have they done? How have they restructured to be relevant in today's economy? And I think I said General Motors. So those are some things. So I want a PowerPoint. I want your PowerPoint to use presenter notes. And the presenter notes serve as if you and I were in a room and you would have the notes maybe on a 3x5 or on the PowerPoint, and those would be your talking points. So here's some tips for my class and overall on PowerPoints. PowerPoints should not have every word that you're going to speak about. I had a professor when I was working on my doctorate, and he said it shouldn't have more than 5 points on a PowerPoint. 5 points. Indentions, the circles or squares, shouldn't have more than 5. And each of those lines should not have more than 5 words. I don't know, 5 words seems a little small, maybe 7, I'm not sure. But the point is, your PowerPoint should not have all the words that you're going to say. The PowerPoint is supposed to serve as things to jog your memory for you to speak on. You're supposed to be able to talk it. But in an online environment, it's kind of difficult. But still, I don't want your PowerPoint to have a bunch of words on it. The key points and then the presentation notes would have the words that you would use to speak. And when you're doing this research, I think the best thing to do is to do the research on a company. And if you have a company that's local, that is restructured or has downsized, feel free to use that. That's fine. Find something that you're interested in. It can be local, and then just first do the research on what happened with the company. Did they restructure and now they're successful? Did they restructure and they were not successful? Did they downsize? Did they go bankrupt? Overall, I want to know what happened to Toys R Us. They were there and now they're gone. What happened? Those are things that will make what you are reading in your text, you'll be able to synthesize it. Oh, okay. So my suggestion is find a company, do the research on the company first, read about it, what happened, how long they've been, and what was the change. And then go back to the text where it talks about restructuring or downsizing and see if you can put it together that way. Because what you want to be able to do is everything that you learn in any of your courses, not just this course, in any of your courses, is to be able to go out in the real world and say, when you see it, oh, that's what that was. That's what that's called. It's called restructuring. I just thought it was whatever, downsizing, laying off people, or going bankrupt, not being able to see it. So that's my tidbit. Remember, you are graduate students. The expectation is higher. You have to use your resources, YouTube, the library, scholarly resources, journals, business journals. And I think I told you, you should be reading at least one business journal as a graduate student. Now, I'm not going to tell you I like Kiplinger. I read that business magazine. Sometimes I will read Money Magazine. You need to just pick one. I'm not going to say, oh, you need to read the Wall Street Journal. If that's your favorite, then great. The words are so little for me. Anyway, you need to be reading at least one business journal or a trade journal if you're in the medical field or something, just to stay abreast of what's going on in business. Because what I have found is a lot of times students are in school and you have family and all these things, and you just have enough time to do your work, to read the text and take care of all that stuff. But that does not make you well-rounded, because the things that you are reading in the text, remember, the text comes out, it's already outdated. Things are changing so quick. So the text we're reading, things have changed already. So you always have to be abreast of what's going on in the world that's relevant to what you are pursuing. So when you graduate, the expectation is that you are teachable, that you have an understanding of business or whatever it is, policy, whatever graduate degree you're going for, you're pursuing, and that you have an understanding of how to go research information in the real world, synthesize it, and make it applicable and work for you and your company. Okay. Thank you for listening. Again, I apologize. I've been sick, but I'm recovering slowly but surely, and I promise to get back to your midterms. But I can assure you that everyone did well because I read through them. Okay, you guys have a great evening, and if you ever have any questions, please email me. Thanks.